What if the story you've been living your whole life wasn't actually the truth?
What if it was just a set of old beliefs created years ago that are still running the show today?
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Milt.
And this is Rewrite Your Story, the podcast where we explore how the narratives in your head shape your life.
And how you can begin rewriting them with clarity, compassion, and tools you can actually use.
Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Milt?
Oh my gosh. I am doing so good. We have had technical difficulty after technical difficulty.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to kind of explain. So we have a set meeting where we are supposed to start, we jump on at 12, we go for 2 hours just to see what flows and whatever. And the entire last 47 minutes have been spent on technical difficulties. And it's just been so fun. And Milt's having to record from a different device. Our headphones have been working up. It's been a whole process.
And to add to that, we didn't push record when we recorded last week.
Yeah. So we spent a hot minute. It was a solid hour.
Good hour 15, I think.
Yeah, good hours of us talking and good conversation. I think it went really well. And then we get to the end and we're like, yeah, wait, did you push record? No, did you push record? No, but my thing is telling me it recorded, so it's fine. It didn't record, friends.
No, all it did was show the little red button that shows the videos being used. And we thought that was the record symbol.
Yeah.
But now we've double checked.
We've changed the settings so that the second we jump into this, it records. So it'll never happen again.
We'll see.
Hopefully. We're hoping.
Okay, let's jump into this then. Okay, so we tried to do this last week and it was so good. And we're like, well, now we have to carry this on. Because if you're watching it all, you know that I have to move around. And one of the things that I have to do is play with something. So today we're going to introduce the Fidget of the Week segment. However, next week's show may not have the Fidget of the Week because we're probably going to clip this into 2 shows.
Possibly, yeah. We'll see.
So we'll make up. But hopefully by then we're actually getting some custom roots fidgets. So hopefully by the time we come back, we'll have some fidgets that are roots fidgets.
That'll be so exciting. I love that so much. That's so fun.
So,
you're going to have to mail some to me.
Yeah, well, no, definitely. And we have to then figure out how many fidget budgets we need to make because, that's going to be a problem. And then my office is going to be nothing but fidgets. Okay, so this week, I don't know what these are called because I bought one a long time ago and this one's different. So the ones I bought, you could separate the middle piece. They were magnetically fused, and then there was this screw that held in the whatever the technical term, the ball bearing unit.
Oh God!
Not an engineer to spin it. Well, this one I actually like a lot better. So it's just a metal cube. On the outside is silver for all of my friends who can't see. And then on the middle of the cube, there's a rectangle that's kind of beveled. So it makes a cube shape, but you can spin the outside around the center, or you can spin the center and hold the outside, but it's heavy. And that's what I like about it because it's got so many cool sensory things. I can spin it on my hand. I spin it on my face. This is me just showing how I did not probably realize I was on the spectrum until about, 3 months ago, because man, do I love playing with sensory stuff. So who knows? Maybe I'm not on the spectrum. Maybe I'm just weird, and I'm okay with either one. Either way,
yeah.
This is my fidget of the day. It's the metal cube that spins on the outside and you hold the middle, or you spin the middle and you hold the outside. And it's very fun.
It's really cool because you're saying it's a cube, but when it spins, it's like a circle.
It's like a top. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets like a top thing going.
Yeah.
Dreidel, I
That's
made it.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it looks like a dreidel kind of.
Yeah, I like
Yep,
it.
it's very cool.
I appreciate this segment because I feel it very ties into our describe and like
Yeah.
what we talk about with mindfulness, and so I think that's really fun. Look at us always using skills. See how easy it is? That's
I've already been told
sarcasm.
today that it's easy to say the skills, Milt. It's really hard to use them. And I said, until it isn't.
It's so true.
And then they
So,
glared
so
at me.
true. Awesome. So today we wanted to get into talking about our first pillar. So talking about learn. The episode that actually just released today, we went over a bunch of different stuff, but we talked about like the state dependent learning and the window of tolerance. We got into that stuff as well. And so we're going to kind of take it back to the SAS model and our pillars and all those things. And so, yeah, we're going to start with that first one, that learn pillar today.
So I don't know that we've focused enough on our title, the Rewrite Your Story podcast. So let's talk about that from the learn perspective. So part of the reason we chose that name is I read a great book that talked to me about all sorts of things that the way the human brain labels things.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to write a course on how to rewrite your story, understanding the way your brain works and understanding how to do things. And that then turned into, well, let's just make a new therapy model. And that's turned into this. So if you really want a great book suggestion, Solve for Happy. And we're going to be referencing some of the things from there. But ultimately, we're going to be referencing the new model and how this helps us get to a place where we can rewrite the story that we need to write or that we want to write. In other words, how do we work towards the life that we want to build, not towards the past and how it shaped us and all that fun stuff. So in order to do that, we're going to have to clarify some things that we said in the last video. And that's because this is a development process.
Yeah.
We're merging a whole bunch of ideas to try to make this really more of a life model. We talked about this in our consultation meeting this morning that we did with all the Roots team here. The reason I want to move towards this, and Victoria, pop in with any of the thoughts that you had after we talked about this earlier today.
Yeah.
The reason I want to move towards this is because the way we have to do DBT is it's very textbook. DBT has a structure and it lays it out, and I've relied on that structure the entire time I've been a therapist. It's a great structure, but that structure has I think it's interesting that my daughter, who was in consultation this morning, and my client who I met with before consultation said the same thing. They're not really sure how to use the skills in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is DBT puts things in categories. So you go through the mindfulness section, then you go through the emotional regulation section, then the interpersonal effectiveness or relationship section, and distress tolerance, and so on and so forth. And you learn all the skills under that umbrella, but that's not real life.
Right.
In real life, you're not just going through, in a I even use the example of like in a conversation with my wife, I will go through a distress tolerance skill. I will go through an emotional regulation skill, and I will go through a mindfulness skill as I'm trying not to lose my cool or, anything else. And so we don't get into an argument.
Yeah.
And so it's really more about, can you identify what you need in the moment? And that's where learn comes in. So you can't rewrite your story if you don't identify where you're at. And the way we were describing the learn pillar is more from a educational standpoint.
Which I think kind of fits into it, right? Like I think it
I
kind of
think
is
there's always going to be an educational piece, right?
right. Yeah.
But what it really is the ability to work on being in this moment understanding all the things that are affecting this moment, and then learning how to differentiate between information from my past or my sadness and depressive states of disappointment, and recognizing how my body's trying to push me for a future that's unwritten,
Right.
even though none of those things are happening right now, because right now it's this.
And I feel like that's for me, I think that's where that educational piece comes in, is because you are having to learn to be able to distinguish between those, right? And you're having to recognize, right, and be aware, right, of when you're in that future forecasting or that past, like,
Past
ruminating kind of
predicting.
thing, past
Yeah.
predicting kind of thing. So that's
Or
where I feel
ruminating.
like,
We could talk about rumination. That's the best part.
oh gosh, dang
We
it.
did talk about rumination. I
We
forgot.
did
We're
talk about
coming to
rumination.
rumination.
Oh, full circle moment. So what I was saying is, I think that's where the educational piece comes in for me, is because it's more, I guess, less educational and more kind of, but more like absorbing the information, right? And
Yeah.
absorbing everything that's going on in this present moment and being aware of, again, like we said, when you're future forecasting or past predicting.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way of putting it. So we're reframing learn a little bit.
Yeah.
The reason we're using the title learn is because we need to create a state of curiosity. One of the biggest things that gets in the way of actually observing what's going on in the moment is all of our filters.
Right.
And so the one of the reasons we chose the term learn way back when we invented this motto for us was we really wanted people to learn how to accept who they are in this moment with neutral judgments, and we'll get into what that means a little bit more later too.
Yeah.
Or non-judgmentalness, but I'm going to expand on the term neutral judgment, or we're going to expand on the term neutral judgment. So it is a learning phase, and there's an education phase in every state. So I don't want to say that learning is the only educational phase. There's a feature of education in the learning phase. Another way to say learn is to be present,
Yeah.
be in this moment, understand this moment, learn to let go of the past, learn to let go of the future.
Yeah. It feels very, maybe this is the wrong term, but again, from my understanding,
Can't be
and
wrong. We're making it up as we go.
well, my vision of it is it's a very processing moment. You're processing all the information again, right? You're processing, like you said, like looking through our filters and our biases and all of those things, and just taking in everything in this moment rather than, and filtering out all the other kind of like noise that comes into play.
So that jumps into where neutrality comes in. So neutrality is an interesting word. So when I think about neutrality, I think about people who are not taking a stand. I'm staying neutral in an argument. But there's more definition to it than that. It also can be, I'm not making any decisions because I'm just gathering information. It can be an information gathering phase. Again, going into that learn thing. So I've always struggled with the term non-judgmentalness. It's always been one of those terms that kind of eats at me, because I know in me I have a hard time not judging things, and there
Right.
are times where judgment is absolutely appropriate. And so I've always struggled with this mindfulness concept of no judgment or non-judgment. It's not exactly aligned with my values. My values tell me I need to actually judge certain things as wrong. So, for example, I believe in laws against assault and rape and violence against other people and things like that. However, I also believe that I should judge the action of a person and then try to figure out how I can see that person as a person still, and work with them and help to become better. And I've worked with lots of really people who've had really, really colorful and dark pasts in their lives. Some people who were rapists, some people who did attempt murder on other people, and some even predators. And when I got them, they weren't those things at the moment. They had been those things in the past. And they had been, heavily medicated, and they also had severe mental health disorders. And so my job was to just work with what was in front of me and try to help them build their life while also maintaining appropriate safety standards for the community. A lot of these individuals that I worked with were under what they call civil commitment, which is a tool that's used in the mental health community for someone who's a danger to themselves or others, and we can't get them controlled so that they can't stop being a danger to themselves or others. And so we have to put them under commitment, take away their rights, and make sure that they're doing the things they're supposed to, especially taking their medications for people who are severely mentally ill. So there was not a lot of neutrality towards these people. There was, in fact, 100% judgment being passed on them all the time.
Yeah.
And so I would go and do this part of my job and put people under civil commitment. And then I'd also go and talk in DBT group about non-judgmentalness. And so that conflict always bothered me. And so then I stumbled upon this term neutrality. And I think the reason neutrality works is because I started saying in class, in DBT class, when I would teach non-judgmentalness, is I would use the word, we're not non-judgmental, we're pausing judgment. So that's another way of saying we're pausing. In that moment, in the moment you're in, we need a pause on all of our filters.
Right.
So that we can actually assess what's going on. So that we can check in with our body and the thoughts and the parts that are coming up. So that we can actually observe with our five senses. And this doesn't have to take a long time. We are already wired to do this. So we can do this really quickly if we start practicing it.
Right.
However, putting down our filters is really hard.
Yeah. Actually getting into that neutral state is really hard because of everything that we've experienced, right? Everything in our lives, everything that has protected us, everything that has harmed us, like all of those things feed into why this idea of neutrality is difficult.
So one of the ways to start being neutral is to start to understand some of our filters. Guess what we're going to talk about? Rumination.
Oh my God. I was really hoping you were going to say filters. I was like, let's get into biases. Let's go for it. No.
Okay. This is one of the metaphors I've used since I started counseling, since I started helping people. And Victoria's always loved it. It's always one of her favorites. Understanding the purpose of rehashing our thoughts. So first off, what have you gained out of going over your thoughts many times? Like what is the positive benefits of actually, thinking about and assessing and using the skill effectively?
So for me personally, I think one of the things that I really do gain from it is, depending on the situation, I'm able to actually see different perspectives from whatever the event was or whatever the scenario, situation, whatever it was. That can happen. Again, it's very dependent on what the situation was, how emotionally heightened I was, like all of those things. But sometimes I'm able to recognize when I was maybe overreacting or when I was at a skills breakdown point, and that's why I did what I did, right? Or I felt the way that I felt. So I think that's definitely a positive is it can sometimes open up that curiosity piece, right? And it can sometimes allow for that to come into play when thinking about situations.
And isn't it interesting that when we do kind of rehash that in the moment, look at how much information we get. When we're not trying to think about everything that's happened in our life, the entire timeline of everything, then it's easy to come to some of those conclusions and actually find the humility to accept where we might have screwed up, right?
Right.
Where, this was clearly I was overreacting. I hadn't eaten, or, all of these things. Not that we're not making excuses for the problem. We're actually saying, that's something I can now change going forward. So maybe I just carry around a granola bar in my backpack so that I know the next time I get hungry, I don't have to get hangry,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and those options. So it's interesting that we're willing to work on moment things if we can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to sit with moment things that we can't fix. And
Right.
that's when I think it transitions to ruminating. So the process of rumination
Here we
is
go,
as
guys.
such. Cows eat grass and they chew on that grass and then they swallow it. And it goes to stomach number uno.
So weird.
And it churns and churns and churns and breaks down. And then it gets vomited back up. And now it is called cud. And that cud is what they chew on some more. And then it goes to stomach number 2. And it does this 3 or 4 more times. I don't know. Any animal expert out there can tell me I am way oversimplifying this. That's
Such
okay.
an interesting process, though.
I cannot drive by fields of grass and not see solid milk now.
Oh, God.
I have decided that is what they all are. So if I could turn my thoughts into like cool milk, that would be awesome.
That'd be a positive.
It would be a positive. I don't want to know how I would like where my udders would be because I don't want to think
Oh,
about
God.
that.
Moving on.
However, that's not what happens with our thoughts.
Yeah.
With our thoughts, our beliefs, our filters, our experiences, what we do is when we vomit them back up, we then start to put everything through those filters. And we start acting as if everything we're experiencing in this moment is the same as every other moment before. And I think we talked about this with a little bit with the window of tolerance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, maybe we did.
I think so.
Did we mention that that trauma memory doesn't work in a linear fashion? If we didn't, this
No,
would
I
be
don't think we
where
talked about
this is where
that
it comes into
specifically.
play is our we would love to think that our brain works like a timeline, but it doesn't.
Right.
It actually works in states. So when a feeling state comes up, our brain then references every time we've had that feeling state. So think about your brain as a rumination factory.
Yeah.
Every time you have a feeling state of joy, you can almost go through all the times that you felt joy, or even more specifically, all the times you felt joy with that person, all the
Right.
times you felt joy around a lollipop, all the times you felt joy around, you know, hugging your dad, whatever it is. Unless it was angry and then you remember all the bad times when you hugged dad,
Right.
or all the bad memories when you had a lollipop, or all the times that, you know, the kids ran away from you at recess
Oh.
because, you know, you had cooties or something. So I don't remember what I had, but I know they ran away sometimes. But they ran towards too, right? Like that's the problem, is kid memories are always funny because they remember the bad ones and they don't always remember the good ones.
Yeah.
So when you're going through a state, your brain then accesses all the memories and then it vomits all that stuff into you. And you're now in that rumination cycle where you're just living through that memory of what's happening right now and every other memory. In a couple session I was having recently, we were talking about how one individual couldn't get past a past partner. And that past partner was almost always brought up every time there was a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And so the new partner is like, I'm not them. I don't want to be compared to them. I'm me. I mean, heaven
Valid.
knows that I have enough of my problems that I don't need to have their problems too, except that the feeling state to the other client felt the same. And so they didn't know how to not ruminate.
Right.
And that's where you get really lost in the moments, is because when you're talking to someone, you may not just be talking about what's going on right now. You may be talking about right now with the intensity of all the past memory coming out of you.
Yeah.
And that absolutely takes you out of the moment. It takes you out of reality for where you are, and it puts you in a state of fighting demons as opposed to actually dealing with the problem.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, think about the parts that come up from that, right? Especially
Yeah.
like protectors, like they're saying we're experiencing this same feeling that we felt with this unsafe situation or this unsafe person. And so they're battling for their life to make sure that we don't feel that. We don't want to feel that again.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's their job. Like they're
Yep.
doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're using the memory of the past that caused us harm to say we're not going through that again, even if it's an ineffective intervention, i.e., yelling, storming off, shutting down. There's the Gottman Four Horsemen, defensiveness, stonewalling, and two others that I can't remember off the top of my head. So, rumination in and of itself is not inherently bad. It's more about, can we recognize that we are in a rumination cycle, that we're stuck in past facing view of what's going on this moment. So if you imagine, like, I don't know how it looks like on the screen, but like me and you are talking to each other right now. Like I'm looking at you, you're looking at me.
Right.
If I'm past facing, I'm doing, I'm looking away from you. Sorry, you're now seeing my messy office. And so even though I'm talking to you, you can hear my voice. I'm not looking at you. I'm not processing you. I'm just there. But I'm focused on whatever I'm focused on. And
Right.
rumination does that. It draws you into a period of focusing on not reality, what you need protection from. So that's one of the dangers of not being in the present. You want to
Right.
take how the future-oriented problem?
Obviously, this is my perception, so please correct or add your own in. I think the harm of the future forecasting or the just always looking into the future, it sets expectations, right? Like I know for me, like it sets that, well, I have to do this to get here. I have to do this to be that. I have to do this too. And then it creates just that internal pressure. And it's so difficult to recognize, like, it is all internal. It's so difficult to recognize, like, well, Milton doesn't have those expectations of me. Like, that's all coming from me. And so if you're anything like me, as far as like a perfectionist, I think a lot of future forecasting comes with that. Like a lot of saying, well, if I don't do this exactly this way, I'm going to be fired or I'm going to be left, or the fear of possible negative consequences just like pile onto each other forever. And then it just feeds that idea too, and then feeds the expectations and the pressure. And it just feels like a different kind of vicious cycle than the rumination cycle in its own way.
Well, it's almost taking the rumination cycle and demanding that it be the future.
Yeah.
You're actually saying, because this all happened in the past, I know this is my future.
Right.
One of the terms for this is catastrophic thinking. One of my favorite scenes from Inside Out, great movie. Everyone should watch it. If Disney wants to promote us, because we promote the crap out of Inside Out,
yeah, I know.
We're more than happy to. In fact, you can all see my Inside Out head right there. Yeah. We love the movie so much. That's my head in my dad brain. Yes. So what Fear does in this movie is he's coming down with like it's got to be like 8 reams of paper that he's walking down the stairs, and each one is a different catastrophe that can happen. And some of the catastrophes are like meteor shower, volcanic eruption,
explosion.
Yeah, just all sorts of crazy stuff. The sun could explode, like everything that's impossible.
Aliens could come, yeah.
And then there's one that's like so easy to happen, because the scene is about Riley going to her first day of school. And so the subtle future proof that the one that absolutely is going to happen, getting called on by the teacher, is the same as meteor showers and volcanic eruptions. Yes. So then when it happens in the moment, all the future's now proven true.
And it's panic. It's pure
And he
chaos, like
throws all the
mayhem.
papers in the air, and
Yes.
they just scatter. And it was just such a beautifully done moment. Out the gate, we knew it was going to happen. It's beautiful
Yes.
of how they did that. And
That's
man,
it. It's interesting with that too, because like just thinking of when that's happened, right? Like it really does make us say like, well, I was right all along. And even though that was like that situation was very likely to happen, it then reinforced us believing that all the other catastrophes that we come up
Predicted.
with and predicted, yeah, is gonna happen. And just like that a self-fulfilling prophecy almost of, and it
So it
just like
starts out with this catastrophic thinking where your brain just, first off, can we give our brains credit for how bad we can get destroyed? I think that's pretty awesome because some of us are very creative.
yeah.
If anyone has watched any of the, what's his name, I don't know, the crazy director who has like the just in Wes Anderson movies, like he just his brain is so creative about how things are going to go bad.
Yeah.
I just love it. Our brains are super creative. So instead of looking at that as a negative, we can actually see that in the present moment without the rumination filter, without a catastrophic filter, as, oh my goodness, my brain's actually trying to give me something to think about. It's actually trying to do something so that I stay alive. The problem is we don't have many predators that are chasing us in the jungle anymore.
Mhm.
I've only been scared by Victoria a few times in my life. No, I'm just kidding.
It's been a lot more than a few.
So the problem is we have to make something a predator because our brain needs something to pay attention to. So if we can start to accept that, oh, that's interesting. My brain is trying to fill a void because nothing is dangerous right now.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that idea of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. That's a perfect example, right? Like you probably have worry that your cat's going to come in and bother the broadcast. And how many times have you worried about that and paid attention to that?
I wasn't until now.
Well, you said it earlier, so I assumed it was still a worry. And then I had all sorts of worries that we weren't going to get this thing done because everything technology-wise was going to shut down. But if we allow ourselves to just keep using that creative energy, then that flows through what we're doing. And then we're turning it into this as opposed to this, oh, look, I was right. Something went wrong. Now everything's going to go wrong. And that was my childhood. That was the state I grew up in. I think I talked about that a little bit, where my mom was super outwardly anxious. And so if something went wrong on the outside, we might as well pack up and go home that day. And think about what's going on there. Like that part of you that's anxious is really not trying to stop you from having joy. What it's saying is, if the meteors are going to come, I want to be in the place that I feel the most comfortable.
Right.
And so what's happening is your body's just driving you back to home. Because at least if you're going to, it's like we see in movies, like, when the end of the world is going to come in movies and you see people like hugging the people they love the best. And they go through this montage before the world explodes, of like everyone chose where they were going to be. And I think that's something kind of beautiful as well, is that our brain really is trying to get us to connect, even in the worst moments. Yeah. What it really wants is connection and validation. And so again, if we can just be in this moment, we can acknowledge that our brain absolutely is looking for danger, absolutely has experienced danger from the past, and then is just here, and we look at what those things are trying to push us towards. What they're trying to push us towards is acceptance, validation, understanding, being seen.
Yeah. Again, what are the needs that those parts are trying to have met in some way?
Yeah. Let's talk about some other things that get in the way. I'm trying to follow. See, here's the problem. Whenever we try to go back and redo something that I did, it doesn't make any sense after you've done it, unless you can see it. Because the way my brain works is so ADD that it comes up with like really cool ideas in the moment and makes all these connections. But then if I try to go back and redo them, it doesn't work.
We talked about when we first did this, we talked about there were certain things that we liked so far in our training manual that is in the process of being built. And I'm pretty sure this was one of the ones that we really liked. So in the SAS model, learning does not mean gathering information. It means creating accuracy in perception.
Yeah.
The goal is to understand how internal and external events truly unfold, not how we assume they unfold, so that later correction or growth occurs on real data rather than guesswork. Yeah, I think that kind of fits into like what we were just talking about, right? Like we're wanting to, again, stay in this space of like presence and in the moment, so that we're not having past or future catastrophes, whatever, come into play.
Yeah, so this is the example of labeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is where labeling can take us out of the moment. So going back to the Mo Gadot book, Solve for Happy, he uses this example of, you know, a person sits down at their work and they look around and they can't find their favorite pencil. And then they start going through this series of events. That's my favorite pencil. All my best work has been done with that pencil. If I lose it, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, I'm going to lose my family. I'll bet you it was that darn Emily that took the pencil. And then it just goes on and on and on and labels all these things and, like, you know, assumption, assigning blame, all of these things. The moment you start labeling, you're not observing.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is Emily walks by, bends over and picks up the pencil and says, "Oh, you dropped your pencil." So instead of actually observing, we jump right to labeling, because labeling is how our brain works. We need a definition of the danger.
Yes.
When we start acting, we act from the definition of the danger or the definition of the problem or the definition of whatever. That's what we act from.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're observing, it's not acting. Well, here's the problem. In American culture, how much is not acting valued?
Not at all.
It's definitely not a high priority. There are definitely times where we have valued not acting, but we almost have to show the rationale for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the real
Justification.
value, yeah, we have to justify where we didn't take action. Because the real bigger or higher priority value is action. So in the state of Utah, we have this cool logo on our state flag. It is the logo of a beehive. And one of the cultural things about Utah is that we don't pause, we keep working. You know, part of our history is that, you know, the great pioneers came here to a desert that was ugly and didn't look like it could sustain any life. And those people went and worked really, really, really hard. And they built a beautiful place in the desert. And I love where I live. I get to have mountains around me. I get to have beautiful, I don't find desertscapes beautiful, but I know lots of people do find them beautiful. I get to have crazy cool trees like bristlecone pines and sage trees. I don't even know if sage is a tree. I don't even know. I just have cool beauty around me. And then I also have my house and my cities and the amenities of those cities that all came because people worked.
Mm-hmm.
And all growing up, I was not allowed to not work. If I didn't work, I was lazy. So you can see how that filter, that label, keeps me from observing.
Right.
Because if I never slow down to actually see what's going on and I just work, then all I've accomplished is work and I've never actually connected with me.
Can we take a second though to just like acknowledge how hard that is? Because I feel like there's so many people that I see. Specifically, I'm going to talk about influencers. Honestly, I wish I had the ability to be an influencer because there's no way that my brain could do it, because there's one of the biggest things I hear all the time on social media is I forgot the plot, right? And then it goes into like how like this is the plot. So it's like their friendships, their relationships, their pets, their like amazing moments, all these things. And then it's saying too, like, you need to explore, you need to experience, you should do all this. It's not, life isn't just about money, it's not just about work, it's not just about status, all these things. And yes, like I agree 100%. I agree. Like I want to be in a moment and like, or live a life where I can just connect with my family and my friends and my loved ones and just be in those moments fully. But that's not the expectation that's ever set on us, right? Like we said, this like the societal standard is always to be doing, to always be in a space of doing. And so it is so hard to get to a place where we can just be, where we can just experience and just be in this moment, right? Like that's the whole thing that we're talking about. So I just want to like acknowledge the fact that this is so much easier said than done. And it's so much easier, I think, to like understand the purpose versus actually partaking in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually think that's a really beautiful place to kind of stop this first one. We're going to jump back into what Victoria talked about because I also found the part that I liked. And we're going to jump into that in the next segment. Takeaways from today.
Takeaways from this. I absolutely love this line of work. I love what we do. I love that we're in the process of developing this. And it is so hard. And so just like show yourself grace with that. If you're on your healing journey, give yourself grace because it's not easy.
I am appreciative that even the most simple thing around us, and it's not simple, that grass turning into milk can be something that teaches us some of the most powerful lessons. And I love to harken back to like ancient shaman teachers and things like that. That's what they used. They used the world around them to teach the lessons. So, I love talking about vomiting up, all your thoughts and as you chew on your cud, because it's such a powerful impact. And it is just part of the process.
Yeah.
Like it's actually natural that we go to these things. So that's where you can take grace to that next level, is actually seeing that the world around you is teaching you how to have grace for yourself. And that's really cool. And I love that.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, we'll see you in the next episode.
Here, I'll turn my hat backwards and pretend that we're in recording different. No?
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Rewrite Your Story. Take a moment to notice what story showed up for you today.
Remember, you're not your story. You're the one holding the pen.
And each moment is a chance to write a new chapter.
Be sure to join us next time as we keep exploring the path towards self-alignment.
We'll see you then.